What's going on? It's your girl Rachel Luna, and you are listening to the Permission to Offend podcast. I am jumping out of my clothes. I was going to say skin, but no, I'm staying right here on earth. I shall be satisfied with long life according to Psalm 91. But I'm so excited because one of my mentors, my friends, my sister in Christ, author, New York Times bestselling author of the book Believe It, which y'all can see and hear. I've already dog marked. I've talked about her so much. Author of the upcoming book Worthy. Please help me welcome my friend and yours, Jamie Kern Lima.
Yay! Rachel, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited for this conversation, especially because I know you go there, and we are not going to take a second of anyone's precious time for granted in this talk. So I'm very excited to share everything about Worthy, and also hopefully what you and I talk about is exactly for someone today.
Well, I want to open up about an encounter that you and I just had. It's so brief. We were both at our friend Brooke Thomas's Live Out Loud experience. It was a fantastic event. And you were the opening keynote. And you shared the story about Oprah. I'll let you tell it really quickly, and then I'll tell you why I was choking on tears. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing for anybody, listening to us right now who's ever sabotaged something or has ever kind of like just felt stuck and they don't know why, or is like, oh, I have these big hopes and dreams, but like deep down inside, I don't feel worthy of them. I had a moment, Rachel, with Oprah that changed everything in my life, because I thought I was so confident and I had all these things going for me and everything around me was going right in my life. And what I learned is that self-confidence is so important, of course, so important. And it's also different than self-worth. And when we can build all our skills and attributes and build our confidence and do all these things right, but we still don't know why we're stuck, or we still don't know why we're sabotaging something, or we still don't know why our business isn't taking off to a certain level, or why we know we have a lot we want to do, but we're sitting around scrolling Instagram. I had a moment that taught me this lesson that in life, all of us, we don't become what we want, we become what we believe we're worthy of. It's why I wrote this book, Worthy, because 80% of women feel like we're not enough. 75% of female executives deal with imposter syndrome right now as we're talking live. And I thought, I didn't yet understand the difference in my life between self-confidence and self-worth. So I thought, because I'm working so hard, because I'm, ambitious and I'm serving and I'm giving and I'm showing up in the world, that eventually if I do enough of that, then I'll feel enough. I'll finally then feel enough. And my whole life, from the time I was a little girl, I would sit in my living room many days alone, and I would watch Oprah. And I had this knowing. I didn't know if it was a whisper from God. I didn't know what it was. But as a little girl sitting in a suburb of Washington State, who had kind of like no rational reason for thinking this, I would watch her. I would say to myself, one day I'm going to interview other people, share their stories with the world. And I always had this kind of knowing I would meet her one day, which made no sense. And you kind of sound like, a wild person to have a knowing, but I knew it as a little girl, but it made no sense. Fast forward, 35 years, and I met Oprah, and I met her at an event, and it was a beautiful story of how it happened. And after, it was so brief when I met her, and after I met her, I wrote an entire email with all the things I wish I had said when I met her. And I prayed like crazy that somehow, because it would be one in a billion that it would ever make it to her, even through people who knew people kind of a situation. And she got the email, and she invited me over to her house for lunch. And I was just like outside of my body thinking, oh my gosh, right? So at this moment, Rachel, everything in my life on the outside was going so well. Like, I'd sold my company for over $1 billion, and, was on the Forbes list, and all these things that the world tells us are what success looks like were happening. And I went to Oprah's house for lunch, just me and her. And it was like a 3-hour lunch. It was better than I could have ever imagined in my entire life. And at the very end of this lunch, she gave me her cell number and she said, call me anytime. And she just looked me straight in the eye. I'll never forget this moment. She's like, you can call me anytime. And I'm like, thank you. And I left that day and I did not call her for 4 years. And for 4 years, and this is my lifelong dream, right? And for 4 years, I would tell myself stories like, oh, I just don't have the perfect thing to say. And when I think of that, then I'm going to call. Or, oh, everyone wants something from her. I'm going to prove I don't need anything from, I'm just going to be a real friend. So I'm going to wait to call. Like, it's all these stories we tell ourselves. And then one day, 4 years later, I realized the real reason I hadn't called her, which was that deep down inside, I did not feel like I was worthy of being her friend. And in that moment, I remember getting still, being so upset at myself, and also having this feeling where my soul knows I'm worthy of being her friend. Like, I am a kick-ass friend. Like, I am a great friend. So I know in my soul, deep down inside, I'm more than worthy of being a friend to anybody, whether it's Oprah or anyone else. But my mind and my thoughts and my self-doubt had convinced me I wasn't worthy of it. And that was the moment that I picked up the phone and called her. That was the moment and we ended up teaching a class together. And in that class, one of the topics was how you do not become what you want, you become what you believe you're worthy of. And literally, I became obsessed with self-worth. How do you build self-worth? There's, 4 main components to feeling fulfilled, which is self-confidence, growth, contribution. But all of those get multiplied by your level of self-worth to get your level of fulfillment. And what I realized is I had all of those. I had self-confidence, which is so important, and growth. I was growing every day and challenging myself, and I was contributing a lot. I had funded leadership training in 100 prisons that year. And, like with Worthy, my book, just like Believe It, I'm donating 100% of the proceeds. And, I feel like I live my life in service. And even with all of that, deep down inside, I still didn't feel like enough because I didn't have strong self-worth. And so I became just obsessed with how do you build self-worth? And that is why I wrote Worthy. It's really for every single girl, woman, person who struggles with self-doubt, even if you're really good at hiding it from the world. And when you consider what does self-doubt already cost you in your career, in your life, in your ambition, in your friendships, in your relationships, and if that answer is too much, literally Worthy is for you. Because we often tell ourselves this lie that if we just keep achieving more, we'll finally feel enough. And it's not true. We'll always feel like something's missing if we don't learn to build rock solid, unshakable self-worth. So that is my what happened with that literally led to the book Worthy.
Yeah. Well, as you're talking, again, I find myself like fighting back tears because I resonate so much. And that as you were sharing that story on stage, I wrote you a letter from my seat. I'm going to get like Luna, y'all listening, vulnerable moments. But I wrote you a letter and I told you, because you gave me your phone number 4 years ago. And I remember when you called me and you said, this is my personal number and call me anytime you want. And I have never called you, not one time. I've texted you because if I think about you, or if like sometimes I think about you and I still don't text, but God will put some things on my heart. And in those cases, I try to be super obedient. But I just felt the same way that you felt. Like, no, everyone wants something from her. She's so busy. And one of the lies that I have told myself, and I know that you have, so many lies in the book, but one of the lies that I have told myself is I can't be friends, or they won't want to be friends with me because I don't make 7 figures. And here's a question for you. What about when those lies are built on some foundational truth? on like the times where people have invited me to be part of things. And then they find out that I have not made 7 figures in a year. I've been literally uninvited to things because I did not make enough money that year.
Mm.
So how do we well, let me finish the story for the listener, because I know you're like, what happened with the story? So I wrote this letter and I told you I'm a freaking awesome friend. Like, lucky is what I think my friends are. I mean, I am lucky too because they're great, but like, I'm a great friend. I'm loyal. I'm a prayer warrior. If you need prayer, I'm the one that you want to call. And I just told you all the attributes that I do believe to be true about myself. And it wasn't, as I was writing it, there was this real beautiful shift because of what you taught us in the room. You know, you gave us a little sample of what we can expect in Worthy. And I really want to encourage everyone that's listening to go buy it right now. I know you have incredible bonuses. Your first book, I've read it so many times. I've cried every time. And I'm not a big crier reading books. Um, but because of what you shared while you were speaking, and as I was writing this letter, it wasn't for you to see my value. It was really for me to remind myself who I was and to really like claim that space. Like, look, I'm a good friend and I'm here for you. So there, I will be messaging you and calling you as I feel led. I even wrote that. Prepare yourself, friend, because I'm a good, right. But going back to my question, what about when you know it's a lie, but you have evidence that some people think it's true?
Yeah. So, okay, let's dive deep into this for a minute. So yeah, in Worthy, there's over 20 tools in there, like that you can apply right now. There's multiple frameworks. Like, we go deep in
I
here.
love a framework.
Me too. Believe it. My first book was really my story of how did I learn to believe in myself, and Worthy is really how do you believe in you? Like,
Mm,
all the lies that lead to self-doubt, all the truths that wake up worthiness. And here's the thing. Okay, so we are in a society and in a culture where so many people think that to be enough, you have to achieve enough, you have to get enough, you have to make enough, you have to all those things. And the very first thing we have to become aware of is that there's this perpetual lie all around us. And that there's a lot of people that mean well, but they just do not know any better. And it's why so
mhm,
often when we, go home for the holidays or see family or friends, even if we're blessed enough to have really well-intended, loving people around us, they will almost always say, how are you? What are you doing? How is your job going? Are you dating anybody? How's your, all the things. Are you having more kids? All the things that we are taught, okay, if I have really great answers to those things and I'm achieving enough to please them in those things, then I'll somehow feel more enough.
mhm.
And, you know, the big thing, taking a step back, and I'm going to dive into your question about this, about what do you do when somebody says, oh, you now don't make this much money, you're not enough, you're uninvited, right? We all have people say these things to us in different ways. Sometimes it's friends not inviting us to coffee and we don't know why. Sometimes, we're swiping on the dating app, we think everything's going great, and then it's not. Like, there's so many things about that. And here's what I'll say. And again, let me preface this by saying self-confidence is so important in our lives. It's a key to fulfillment in our lives. And yet it's different from self-worth. And so let me break this down, because this is going to be a big thing for so many women that are going to read this book. It is going to be for me, it was life-changing.
Mm,
Understanding this difference changed my whole life. Understanding this difference between self-confidence and self-worth changed my whole life. And it helped me understand, oh, okay, this is why I sabotaged not calling Oprah for 4 years. This is
mm,
why so many times I almost doubted myself out of my own destiny, because I
mm,
didn't quite believe I was worthy enough. This is why I listened to other people telling me in some cases that, I wasn't the right fit, or this or that, or whatever it might be. Okay, let me just break this down for 1 second. So self-confidence and self-worth, both so important, of course. self-confidence, while it's deeply internal, it can fluctuate based on everything happening around us, based on our willingness to try and go for it. If we're keeping the promises we make to ourselves, you know this better than anybody. If we're winning or losing, how much of the world's definition of success we believe we have, how we feel we stack up and measure compared to others. And it's self-worth, though, is very different. Self-worth is the deep internal knowing you are enough and worthy of love and belonging exactly as you are, not as you achieve, not as who's inviting you to the club that makes 7 figures and who isn't, not as any of that stuff. It is unwavering, it is rock solid, and it does not fluctuate based on all this other stuff. We are in a society and often well-intended families that teach us, like, okay, if you just make 7 figures, then you'll feel enough. If you just get the white picket fence and this and that, or you just get that dream car, or you just get the 6-pack abs, or whatever it might be. And then how many people listening to us right now have ever believed, okay, when I finally get that job title, or when I finally hit that fitness goal, or I hit that goal weight, or whatever, get that relationship, then I'm going to finally feel happy. Then I'm going to finally feel enough. And then what happens? We get the thing. We work so hard, some of us decades hard, to get that thing. We finally get the thing, right? And this could be big or small. This could be, I worked really hard last year and I hit that sales number, whatever it might be. You finally get it. And then what happens? Does it solve all your problems? Do you finally feel enough? For most of us, no. For most of us, we have this sort of like temporary high, followed by this slow descent back to the feeling of something's missing. Deep down inside, I'm still not enough. So then what do? We actually think, oh, I just need to work harder. I just need to achieve more. I need to get invited into more, 7-figure. I need to, all the things. But it is a never-ending cycle to just building a lot of confidence, which is important, but it does not change your self-worth. No matter how much you achieve, no matter how many people are cheering your name, it does not change your self-worth. And that is a huge thing. And when we realize that and we're like, oh, wow, okay, because here's the thing, if we have low self-worth, we will sabotage things, we will stay stuck, we will doubt ourselves out of our own destiny. If we have medium self-worth, we'll believe we're worthy of things and go for it. But if our self-worth isn't high, when we achieve those things, we'll still feel like we're not enough, and we'll still feel like it has to be more and more and more and more, and we won't feel fulfilled. When we really build our rock solid self-worth, and there's 20 tools in the book Worthy on how to do this, and one of them is through believing God's word over your own self-doubt, right? There's a whole chapter on how if we truly believe God's word over our own self-doubt, it's the quickest shortcut. But when we build that self-worth up high, a lot of people have this fear, Rachel, that, oh my gosh, but if I think I'm enough as I am, then I'm going to have no ambition or any of that. It's actually the opposite. When you have rock solid self-worth, you're no longer afraid of failing. You're no longer afraid of putting yourself out there and telling the person you want to be more than just friends. You're no longer afraid of going up to that friend group and saying, hey, do you want to be my friend? You're no longer afraid of rejection or failure or anything, because you know that the outcome of it does not impact your sense of worth. And building self-worth is really the one thing that changes everything. So, and here's the last thing I'll say is, when we get into the rooms of 7-figure clubs, to use your example, or we get into the swimsuit and love our 6-pack abs, or we finally hit the goal weight, or we finally get married, if that's something someone has aspired to, or we finally have kids, right? Those are beautiful goals. But when we arrive at them, you still take you with you.
Yes, right.
So if you don't have really high self-worth and a rock solid identity that you are enough exactly as you are, you will still arrive at those things with that same identity. You might have more confidence, you might have more things to be proud of, and you're going to feel fulfillment with confidence and growth and all those things, but you will still never feel the fulfillment and like you're enough if you don't truly learn to build self-worth. And so for people that may not invite you to a room or disinvite you because, you don't have this measurement. So I just try to look at these things two ways. One is that, okay, there are certain things where if we're going to be in a group of piloting planes, we have to have a pilot license.
Right.
That's just matter of fact. And like, okay, so is it that? Or because sometimes groups are just like, here, if someone has built this and understands how to fly a plane, now they're part of the piloting group, and it's just cut and dry. And if I don't have my pilot's license, I'm no longer part of it. On the flip side, there are people that believe, and because they don't feel enough, they're still on that never-ending treadmill of thinking, oh, if I have more, if I have all these things that look a certain way around me, that's who I'm going to surround myself with. But deep down inside, they're just on that never-ending treadmill of not understanding yet why they think they need those things to eventually be enough, and they're going to disinvite people that don't have them. And that's their own stuff going on, right? And the goal here is that we are all in control of our own destiny and our own journey of building our identity and building our rock solid self-worth. And when you talk about being disinvited from a group because you don't make as much money, we can often see those things as forms of rejection. And I know you and I are talking about this, that one of the tools, there's a whole chapter in Worthy called when you change your relationship with rejection, you change your entire life. And it almost became its own book. So it is like a master class on how do you take something like that, someone just disinvited you from a group, and instantly our humanness wants to feel rejected, wants to tell ourselves we're not enough, want all the things. And I take you through, and every person who reads Worthy, through this framework on how, because for me, Rachel, the number of things I've gotten disinvited to or never been invited to, right? Like even building It Cosmetics for my living room. Oh my gosh, I was told I did not belong in the beauty industry for so long. And the number of stores that said you're not the right fit for us. And, and it was like, I was told so long that I didn't belong or didn't fit in, until eventually we were copied because we were leading the industry, right? But when we don't know how to like learning these tools of how do I reframe rejection in a way where I am fearless about it, because the big thing the big risk here when it comes to your self-worth is that when we don't know how to process rejection in a way that's empowering, because normally rejection we think is really painful, and it can be so painful. There's a tool in here on how you reframe it, because for so many of us, we've had so many failures in the past. We've had betrayals. We've had people break our heart. We've had people let us down. We feel like we've failed, or we've hurt people, or we've made mistakes, or all those things. And the very biggest risk of all this is we start to think that we're a failure, which is now an identity thing, right? And sometimes when we get disinvited from groups and, or something bad happens to us, we think we're bad. And when it takes root at an identity level, that's when it can really affect your self-worth. And so one of the tools in the book is how do you, change your relationship with rejection or failure or any of these things to literally change your entire life so they don't take root at an identity level. And so you can become fearless about them. Because, for me, like I did so many things wrong on a business level building It Cosmetics, even though people look at it and go, oh, it's $1 billion business. Like it's a huge success story. That's true. I did a million things wrong. But one of the things that I did right was I literally learned how to completely reframe rejection and failure every time it happened. And I became fearless for it. I became so empowered every time a rejection happened to me, because I chose to assign a meaning to it that empowered me instead of caused me pain. And so there's a whole masterclass on how to do that in Worthy.
I love that you say revel in the fact that you can be fearless over rejection. I was like trying to silently turn my page. I know that we're at our time. I could talk to you all day. And I just want to like dovetail and just tell you that everything in the book is so poignant. And for our listeners, a quick little brain thing that happens when you recall something, your brain doesn't know the difference between the truth, a lie, or a memory. So that's why sometimes you'll get emotional. For me, having had those experiences now and using your 4R framework, I look at it as like, there are some rooms, to your point, where there are qualifications, and that's the way it is. And then there are some rooms where there were no qualifications, but then they just found. And for me, I'm just like, big mistake, like Julia Roberts and Pretty Woman, like big mistake, huge, and I know that you've had this experience, and I want to just give this little gem to our listener. If you've ever had those experiences of rejections that we've all had, Jamie, myself, you, the listener, I have found time and again that the same people that rejected me have then come around wanting me to come back into the club, or inviting me to come and speak on their thing, or wondering if I could promote their whatever. And so I just want to give you that encouragement. But more than anything, please do yourself a favor. Love yourself enough to invest and get your copy of Worthy. It comes with some incredible bonuses. You can go to worthybook.com. Did I get that right, Jamie? Yep, worthybook.com. Worthy, How to Believe You Are Enough and Transform Your Life is available. Today is launch day. You're listening to this right now, February 20th. It is launch day. And I really want to encourage you. One of the things I always say is, if you are not willing to make the effort, then no one else is going to make the effort for you. So, Jamie, I love you. I cannot wait for this book, y'all. If you buy the book and you don't love it, I've only ever made this promise 2 other times. That was with Marshawn Evans Daniels and with Dan Martell, because those are 2 other great books that I loved. If you buy Worthy and it doesn't change your life, email me and I will pay you for your copy. I highly doubt that you will have that experience, but I put my money where my mouth is. Will you do the same? I love you, Jamie. Thank you for being here.
Rachel, Luna, I love you. That is so kind that you would make that offer. And I just want to add to that too, and just say that I love how you show up and champion other women. I appreciate it so much. Also, when everybody does get their copy of Worthy, I actually did something really different with this book. I put this library card in the back of it. And what I'm hoping is that once you read your book, I want you to write your name in it and pass it on to another woman. Write her name in that library card, pass it on. We're in this moment in time where it just blows me away and just to experience on such a deep level myself, that if we do not believe we're enough, like it's just such a lie, but it just holds us back from everything. And I think, knowing that 80% of girls and women don't think they're enough, 75% deal with imposter syndrome, 91% of girls and women don't love their body. Like, the time for change has come. No girl, no woman, no person left behind, and knowing they're worthy. And so I'm just so honored to share this, and I can't wait for everyone to get it home, and I can't wait to hear how it impacts your life. So thank you so much for having me, Rachel.
Thank you, Jamie. All right, go to worthybook.com, get your copy today. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you on the next one.